This is a Rutke Mods video.
Hello, I'm Greg Rutke of Rutke Mods, and welcome to this episode where I will be teaching you how to install Windows 8.1 on an unsupported PC, like a PC that does not have the NX bit on the 32-bit processor or any 64-bit processor that's missing the other security features required. This episode will be showing you the quickest and possibly easiest way to do this, which will save a lot of time doing it and a lot of headaches. I came up with this idea on my own and it works flawlessly, and this has not been covered yet before doing it the way I'm doing it.
Hello, welcome to day 2 of filming. Midway through this video I had a little problem, and I thought I would explain to you real quick that most videos I film are not scripted at all, and if I forget something, I just film it and try to put it into the order it's supposed to be in, and try to make it look as seamless as possible. This time I can't do that. If you notice right here, the desktop looks different. You'll also see right here, this master drive, which happens to be the original gateway drive that came with this board. Like stated in my Name Origins video, this computer was based off of all gateway parts from late 2003 through early 2004. Well, the almost 13-year-old Maxter drive decided to die right in the middle of filming this. And I had forgotten a few steps while filming, and a few steps need to be refilmed now also. So you'll notice that the video background and a few other things are going to be different, because now this computer looks like this. It's got a fresh install Windows 7 on a laptop drive because I've run out of hard drives. But it still works totally, and let's get back to the video. Okay, so I'm going to briefly explain why my way is a lot faster and different than other people's ways that have done this before. First off, the reason why it's so much faster is we will be using a Windows 7 install disk to transfer the files from the install.wim file into the second partition of your hard drive. The reason why this is faster through a Windows 7 install disk is because you're not running Windows on said drive. In fact, you're not running Windows on any drive. You're just running Windows through the disk. And because of this, we can transfer the install.wim file. I'll call it the WIM file from now on. We can install that WIM file in literally half the time it takes to do it while you're running Windows. Also, we will be doing all of the file patching with the Windows 7 install disk. This is because the Windows 7 install disk does not require permissions to modify the files that will be on your Windows 8 partition. So, with the Windows 7 install disk, the only thing you have to do is find the file and patch it. That saves a lot of time, and it's a lot easier to do it this way. I will also be doing something no one else has seemed to do yet, and explain to you how to use any Windows 8.1 disk to do this with. Since probably around mid-2015, that's when I started noticing it anyway, Microsoft's Windows 8.1 ISOs have come with a different install file. Instead of it being a WIM file, it is an ESD file. ESD is a different type of file. It's like encrypted or something. And because of this, you can't use the ESD file by itself to use the WIM installer. The GImageX program we will be using. So, to use an ESD file, we will have to be using a program that will convert it to a WIM file. And I'll be showing that and showing you how everything will work better this way. So first off, I have created a little program file set up here
that will help you do this all. I haven't created any of these files, but I've changed the folder layout to make it easier for you and all the names. And the only program in here that's not to the newest version as of August 18, 2016 is the Easy BCD program. I left it as the older version because it works better for what we are going to do with it. Other than that, all these programs are the newest possible as of this date, just stated. I will be including everything that is required to do this, so let's get started. Okay, before we continue, you will need to download this file right here, patch.zip, which I have hosted on this website at this link right here, which I will leave in the description. You need to download it to your desktop and unzip it. Welcome to my Pentium 4 machine. Here's proof we are running a Prescott Pentium 4. Of course, those don't have an NX bit, so they can't run Windows 8.1. Let's continue. Okay, now that we have our patch file unzipped, we need to open it and take this patch file and put it in our main C directory. Just click and drag it. And now we want to leave this here. Now I have included many things in this patch folder right here. You will want to keep one of each of these that match your respective computer. For instance, if you have a 32-bit computer, you don't need the 64-bit program, and vice versa. So you need one of these and one of these that match your computer setup. Also, you can delete this folder once we're done with all of these programs. Now, I have included a program called WinReducer, which can convert the ESD files on newer Windows 8.1 disks to WIM files, which we will be able to use. Now, if you have an older Windows 8.1 disk, you will not need to use WinReducer, but I am going to show you what you need to do if you have an ESD file. First, we need to find the file itself. So once you have put in your Windows 8 disk, we need to go and open the drive. Right-click, hit open. Now we need to go to Sources and look for the install.esd file. And like I said earlier, if you have an older disk, you'll still need to pull this file off, so keep following me. In that case, it will be called an install.wim file. But if you have an older one, you do not need to follow these next steps and you can skip ahead. So we search install and we find the ESD file. We need to click and drag the file to the desktop and let it copy over. Once it's copied over, I will continue. The file is now copied over, and we can now use WinReducer. Before we can use WinReducer, if you do not have Net Framework 4.5.2 installed, you need to install that first. And I have included it for you. Just install it, and then we can run WinReducer. Just a quick note, it is better to use WinReducer on a newer computer, especially one with multi-cores. Otherwise, this would take a very, very long time to convert. It's still possible though, and it took over 7 hours on my Pentium 4 computer. But doing it on a Core 2 Duo computer, for instance, it only took about an hour. And on newer processors, it probably take a max of 15 to 30 minutes. So, we need to open up WinReducer. Now, we do not have to activate it for WinReducer to work. We just click No. Now we click Open, and we search for our ESD file, which of course is on our desktop. We click on that, and click Open. Now once you do that, it may take a while for it to recognize and approve the file. But don't
click out of it, it will just take a while to pop up. And now what we need to do is pick ESD to WIM. And here we can pick which versions we want. For instance, this is just a Pro disk, but if it was more than a Pro, and yes, this is an x64 disk, but still, this is just an example. I have the original file. But we can pick and remove the home version and just do Pro. Then the only thing we need to do is hit convert. It will start converting, and then it will save it to the original files folder, which is the desktop. But since I have all this already done, I can just exit out of it. And once this closes out, it will ask one more time if you want to activate, and you can click no. Then we can continue with everything we need to do. We now need to go back to our patch file folder. We want to take and pull our install.wim file we just converted, or we just pulled off of our older Windows 8.1 disk. We want to click and drag it into the patch folder and leave it there. Now there's other programs we need to install. First we need to install Partition Wizard, which I have already done. And secondly, we will need to install EasyBCD 1.7.2, which is an older Vista version, but it will still work for what we need, and it will work better for what we need it for, which I already also have installed. Okay, so now that we have all the programs installed that we need, we can now open up Partition Wizard. Now you do not need Partition Wizard if you're installing this on a separate drive or already have a partition made on your drive. But if you don't, we need to launch the application. Now we will want to select our disk and go to Move Resize. And before we continue, I would like to recommend that you back up your drive. There's a slim possibility that this could corrupt your drive. Also, some computers, if you're doing this on your boot drive, this may mess up your MBR, and then your computer won't boot, and you'll have to do a MBR recovery, which this computer did once before. So I'm excited to see what happens this time. But for most people, this will be totally fine, and don't worry about it. So to resize our drive, we select the corner of the slider and we pull it over to where we want it to be. If you want your Windows 7 install to be the smallest part of your drive, do that. You need Windows 7 for emergencies, or a supported Windows, whatever Windows you're running. But I would recommend at least Windows Vista. Yeah, I know. But anyway, we slide it to what size we want. I want to do it about halfway. And we click OK. Now the drive hasn't changed yet. Right now we have allocated memory. We need to create a formatted partition. Right here. Click Create. And then we want to select it as primary and give it a name like 8. We click OK. And then we click Apply. Now if you're doing this on your boot drive, there is more than a likely chance this pop-up will show up. This is because it cannot shrink a Windows partition drive, although it can expand it. It can't shrink it while Windows is running. So this will restart the computer, and the program will run before Windows loads. So we click Restart Now. It restarts. It starts loading into Windows. And then the partitioner starts. Once this is completely finished, it will restart, and then the program will verify the partition really quick and then boot into Windows. Now that we are booted back into Windows, we can verify that our partition is on the computer, which is right here. And now we can boot into the Windows 7 install disk to transfer the install.wim files into the secondary partition. We'll want to eject our drive, put our disk in, and then we will want to restart the computer and make sure that our BIOS is set up to boot into the disk. We hit any key to boot into our disk, and mind you, if your computer supports booting into USB, you can also use a USB flash drive, which would make this load quicker, and then you would not need an optical drive. Now that we are in our Windows install disk, we will want to open a command prompt window by hitting Shift F10. Now we will want to point it to our C drive in our computer. Now, if you have a system reserved drive, your C drive will probably not be C in the installer. The system reserved drive will be first. In my case, I don't have a system reserved drive. But if you don't know if you do or not, you can type in letters until you figure out which drive it is by hitting, for instance, my drive, letter C, C colon, hit enter, and then type in dir and hit enter. Now, if this doesn't look like your main drive, type in another drive like D colon and hit enter, and then type in dir again, and if you see your files from your C drive, you're good. So we'll go back to my drive, and what we want to do is type in dir, and we want to go to our patch folder. So we type in cd patch, hit enter, and then we will want to see what's in that directory too, so we can type in dir again and hit enter. Now what we want to do is open our respective program. What I want to open is gimage x86. So we type in and hit enter. Of course, if you're doing 64-bit, you can use the 64-bit. But now we are in the program. And what we want to do is install our WIM file onto our new partition we just made. So we need to go to Apply and click on Browse for Source. We choose our WIM file. We hit Open. Of course, if it doesn't point to it, you will need to find it in your C. But now we click Browse for Destination, and we need to choose our Windows 8 drive and click OK. Now we just click Apply, and it extracts to the second partition. Now this will do this in about half the time it would take doing it in Windows. So it's very quick, and I will come back when it is finished. It has now finished. This computer in Windows takes roughly 15 minutes to do this same process. But in the Windows 7 install, it did it in half that time at 7 minutes and 44 seconds. So now that we are done with that, we can click Close, but we aren't done yet. We need to go back to our command prompt and find our respective patch. In my case, I will be using patch x86. Now, doing this in Windows, you have to add permissions to these files, but doing it in the Windows install disk, you don't. You just find the file and you replace it. We need to uncheck Backup Original File. Then we need to install these. Of course, if you're doing x64, you need to do these too. We will first click on this one, and we need to point the Explorer window to our Windows 8 drive. Windows 8, Windows, System 32, and we need to find this file right here. The easiest way is to just start typing it in. We select that, and we click Open. It writes that. Then we also need to fix this one. It should already pop up in the System 32 file. We type in, we select it, and we click Open. Once that's done, we need to fix this one. We start typing it in, and we select it, and click Open. Finally, we will want to remove the WinLoad patch guard. We type it in, and we hit Open. Now the only thing we need to do is reboot back into Windows 7. Now we are back on the Windows 7 desktop. These upcoming steps are the same as everyone else's videos basically. So if you've already seen this, feel free to move ahead, but at the end of the video I will be showing you what to do with the Windows 7 installation media when you need to repair the files when Windows 8.1 updates mess them up. So keep that in mind and don't just close out the video. Okay, so now that we are back on the desktop, we can head over and open Easy BCD. We will want to go to Add Remove Entries and click on Type, Vista Longhorn, and then we will want to type in our Windows version. In this case it would be 8.1. We select the drive it's on, which is E in this case, and we click Add Entry. Now we can go to Change Settings and choose the default OS as Windows 8. Click Save Settings. Then we can go down here and choose 8.1 and point it to our drive that 8.1's on and hit Save Settings again. Now we need to go to Advanced Options, choose Windows 8, and click Enable PAE and hit Apply. Now we can close out Easy BCD and we need to open a administrator command prompt. Type in CMD, right click, click Run as Administrator, and now we will be entering commands. We type this in and hit Enter, and this brings up the list of everything where we need to verify that everything is correct. If everything is correct right here, we can go on to the next step. We type this command in and hit Enter, and now we can reboot the system. Once we are on this screen, you need to hit F8 for Windows 8.1. But if you get a checksum error saying that winload.exe doesn't match up, that is because some Windows install disks have a different winload checksum, from what I can tell. Sometimes patching the winload.exe file, the patch guard we patched, works and sometimes it doesn't. In my case it didn't, but there is an easy fix, though you do have to redo the WIM install again, aka you have to wipe the partition and then redo the install WIM. But instead of patching the WinLoad, you only patch the top 3 and not the last one on the bottom. Then when you hit F8, your menu will work. Now, it may work for you either way, But if it doesn't, that's how you fix it. The only setback of not patching the WinLoad patch guard is you will always have to hit F8 when it boots up and hit disable driver signature enforcement. But anyway, let's pretend that the WinLoad patch worked. We hit disable driver signature enforcement, hit enter, and Windows 8.1 starts setting up. It restarts. We need to hit F8 again. Go back down to disable driver enforcement. And it continues installing. And we are on the setup menu. I will set this up and get to the end of the setup and start the video back up. At the set up your account section, if you do not want to log into your Microsoft account or set up an account, there's an easy bypass for Windows 8.1 that's nicely hidden. We click create a new account and we click sign in without a Microsoft account. Then we can type in our name. And then it checks for updates. Now we are at the Getting Critical Update screen. If you did not connect to the internet, this would skip. Alright, we are in the back to the moment screen. The computer will restart again and we hit F8 again. And welcome to Windows 8.1. Now, right now, I'm in the basic driver for graphics. So I am going to update my driver right now, which I have saved on my Windows 7 drive. We open up my Windows 7 drive. And here's my driver. I'll be back once it's installed. Now my video drivers are installed. And I'm all set up on Windows 8. Do not leave yet. I am going to install some updates and show you how to fix your boot when the Windows updates mess it up. Okay, so now that this computer has spent literally a day updating Windows 8.1 to the newest updates, we are ready to continue. F8. Driver signature enforcement. Oh yeah, I forgot to patch it. If you ever get this problem, here's how you fix it. We will want to put our Windows 7 install media back into the computer, whether it's your install disk or even a USB flash drive with the install files on it. Then we will want to restart the computer and boot into the disk. Okay, now that we are back in the disk, we can hit Shift F10, go into our main drive, go into our patch directory, and then open up our patch file. Now the only file that Windows usually replaces is this one right here. We go and find it. And we click open. It's patched. Now we can restart the computer again. We can eject our media. And restart the computer. F8. Driver signature enforcement. And it boots up like normal. Well, here's the end of the video. This has been a long time coming. I hope you guys have stuck around to the end of the video. This is the quickest and easiest way that there is to install Windows 8.1 onto a no NX bit CPU. And for one more final proof that this is still the same computer, here's the specs. It is a 478 socket Prescott. Of course, none of the 478 and none of the Prescotts ever had NX. So they cannot natively run Windows 8.1, and yet here we have it running Windows 8.1. I am going to be reassembling this PC soon, and I'd like to dedicate this video to my poor Maxter drive that gave its life. I'll miss you, buddy. You lasted almost 13 years for me. I've had this computer a long time. So now I guess I'll be cramming this old MacBook hard drive in there just to keep it running, because it actually does double duty as a Xbox 360 disk drive flasher. It's a lot cheaper to have one of these than one of those adapters that go into another computer. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. This has been a RutKMods video. Back together. Miracles of zip ties to hold in hard drives that aren't designed to fit. Yeah. And then we will want to point it. I forgot to partition the drive. And hit enter. I can't believe I put a space in it. And to do that, we need to go through the letters. I know mine is D, but let's, for instance, do C. C:, enter. And then we type in dir, enter. And that's the actual drive. Oh yeah, I forgot that I had to redo that one partition on the drive. Oops. And hit enter. What? And click Disable Driver Signature Enforcement. It didn't patch any of them. C drive, which isn't showing up.